Hey there, Jordan Chariton, live in New York City. Back to the basics we go. Back to the basics we go today. So, for those of you who have not been paying attention for the last few days, we've been having some, would you call them minor or major tech issues here at Status Coup, in part because we've been trying to add new graphics and new programs. And part of adding new graphics and new programs, there was some compatibility issues. So I took my laptop to the Apple Store, which I know a lot of you do not like the Apple Store. I took it to the Apple Store. My computer is still at the Apple Store. So this is my old computer. Somehow I managed to make it work for OBS, which is the program we use. I also have done the lighting today, which explains why the lighting is so poor. I am not a lighting expert. Usually I have help with the lighting, so apologies that the lighting is not looking amazing. However, most importantly, I believe, based on everything I've done beforehand, that we're not going to have, knock on wood, any YouTube problems today, unless YouTube decides to screw us, which is always a possibility. So I have the green screen behind me because I don't have Ty helping me right now. He's actually at the Apple Store with both my computer and his computer. So you got the green screen behind me, you got an old computer, but you got the current me. So we're going to do this old school, whether it looks good or not. I hope you could hear me. I hope you could see me. I did my best with the lighting and everything else. So I'm glad we could get up because there's so much important things to address. I want you all immediately to smash the like button on this live stream. 98 people watching at the moment. 48 of you have pressed that like button. So if every single person could smash that like button, the more people that press that like button, the more people that will see this green screen. It's right under the video, the thumbs up button. The more people that press that thumbs up button, the more people that will see the live stream. So we got 109 watching right now. Let's get 109 likes ASAP. If you're watching on your phone and you're in the live chat on your phone, just temporarily press the X button in your live chat and then go right back in, press that thumbs up, and then you could go back into the live stream. Become a Status Coup member. We're going to get into that a little bit later. Follow us on Twitter at Status Coup. We are over 9,000 now on Twitter. We want to get to 10,000 as soon as possible. Subscribe to our podcast, Status Coup Podcast. Rate us 5 stars there, and make sure you leave a nice comment or review, whatever, and go to statuscoup.com and definitely join our email list, which is appreciated. Before I start anything, I just want to give you a short update. We don't really bring this up as much because we don't want to push too many things at one time, but we are close to $68,000 on our GoFundMe, and we just hit 1,500 donors. So thank you to the 1,500 of you who have donated to our GoFundMe. I would love in this live stream to make that $80 to hit 68,000. Hopefully we could pass 68,000 during this live stream and march forward. Our ultimate goal is $85,000. This is a little deceiving because it says 11 months, but we did not push the GoFundMe for 3 of those 11 months because YouTube had blocked us from going live for 3 months. So really, we've raised $67,920 in 8 months, which is amazing. So if any one of you want to leave some cash, Michael, I think Jen is not in the super chat. She's at her kids' school night for the start of school. So if you could put the GoFundMe in there, we appreciate any donations. I think GoFundMe, it's a $5 limit. And obviously you could also leave super chat. So feel free, whatever your poison is. Now, I want to start with this. For those of you who know history, that is the Titanic. And in front of the Titanic is an iceberg. Iceberg right ahead. Thank you to Colin Tooley. For that wonderful graphic. I am going to get to Joe Biden in a little bit, but before I get to Joe Biden, I want to set up why it is so important at this point for anyone in the Democratic Party that actually cares about defeating Donald Trump to immediately call for Joe Biden to drop out of this race. This is not about Bernie Sanders. This is not about me supporting Bernie Sanders. This is about what is good for the United Corporations of America. Before we get to Joe Biden, this is all in the last few days. Donald Trump, take the land. The president wants a border wall. He wants it black, and he wants it by Election Day. President Trump is so eager to complete hundreds of miles of border fence ahead of the 2020 presidential election that he's directed aides to fast-track billions of dollars worth of construction contracts, aggressively seize private land via eminent domain, and disregard environmental rules, according to current and former officials involved with the project. He also has told worried subordinates that he will pardon them of any potential wrongdoing should they have to break the laws to get the barriers built quickly, the officials said. Trump has repeatedly promised to complete 500 miles of fencing by the time voters go to the polls in November 2020, stirring chants of finish the wall at his political rallies as he pushes for tighter border controls. But the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has completed just about 60 miles of, quote, replacement barrier during the first 2.5 years of the presidency, all of it in areas that previously had border infrastructure. So the president of the United States is essentially telling his administration, break the law, I will pardon you. Break the law, I will pardon you. Get my wall built. I don't care what you have to do. I don't care what law you have to break. I don't care what water you have to contaminate. I don't care what air you contaminate. I don't even care if people have to die. Get the wall built so I can win re-election. And I will pardon you. This is what dictators and fascists do. But it gets better, folks. And remember, we got 170 people watching. Only 97 likes. Smash the thumbs up button. It's right under the video. The more people that press that thumbs up button, the more people that will see the live stream. Let's get this going up to 200. And by the way, this is a super chat. And like I said, we have the GoFundMe going. So let us know how you're feeling. So press that thumbs up button right under the video. But that's not done. Not only did the president say he and instructed his officials to break the law, he is instructing his EPA to basically blow up the planet. The EPA is deregulating one of the most climate-destroying greenhouse gases. This from Vice. The world is on fire, all the ice is melting, and the Trump administration wants to turn up the heat. On Thursday, the Wall Street Journal reported the EPA will announce a new plan to deregulate methane emissions by the fossil fuel industry. The EPA's plan continues the rollbacks of moderate Obama-era policies, eliminating requirements that the industry monitor and limit methane leaks from newly constructed wells, tanks, and pipelines. It would also pause efforts to regulate existing sites. While methane, the primary ingredient in natural gas, only accounts for 10% of U.S. greenhouse emissions, it is around 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide, meaning that it heats the atmosphere significantly more quickly than CO2. Some scientific estimates indicate that it has about 80 times more potency than CO2 in the 2 decades after it first enters the air, though it doesn't stick around as long. According to the American Meteorological Society, record levels of greenhouse gases were released in 2018, and a NASA study released in January found that the contribution of fracking to a recent spike in methane levels was substantially larger than previous thought. Likewise, a Cornell University study released earlier this month found the chemical fingerprints of fracking all over the methane spike. So, literally, you have the President of the United States is telling his administration officials to break all laws, to ignore all environmental regulations to build his wall. The totally unnecessary, totally racist wall. That's not going to work. Simultaneously, he is trying to peel back the useless and pathetic and totally not substantial enough regulations we currently have, where pipelines really don't have to record leaks or spills. The level where they are forced to is absurd. They should have to report all leaks, small or big. What this president wants to do is essentially make it so there are no regulations for natural gas pipelines. And by the way, natural gas, the phrase natural gas is a fossil fuel company public relations campaign, because there's nothing natural about these pipelines. Fossil fuels and these pipelines are not natural. So if you in your community, if you already know of toxic climate demolishing pipelines, what this president is now pushing his EPA to do is basically have no regulations. None. The dearly departed David Koch would be in heaven. Well, he is now in hell, but he's probably smiling from his grave with these EPA regulations going away. And make no mistake about it, folks, methane that is emitted not just from the actual pipelines, but from the compressor stations of these pipelines, because all pipelines, all natural gas pipelines, have big compressor stations used to keep the pipeline and the gas at a high pressure. Those emit methane from the compressor stations. So methane isn't just emitted from the actual pipeline that's moving the gas. It is emitted from the compressor stations of these pipelines. The reason I bring all this up, and I could go into 20 other stories about Trump. He literally told his administration officials, let's just nuke hurricanes so we won't have as many hurricanes. Let's just nuke them. He doesn't understand the difference between climate and weather. So I set all this up because regardless of the danger of Trump, his base is absolutely loyal to Donald Trump. His base is just as fervent as they were in 2016. The polls might show that his approval rating is at a very, very poor number. The polls might show currently, Biden, Bernie, Warren, Harris, and Buttigieg all beating him. But the polls also showed Donald Trump had no chance of becoming the Republican nominee in 2016. The polls also showed that Hillary Clinton was going to spank Donald Trump on election night. Pundits and journalists laughed at the thought of Donald Trump becoming president. Couldn't happen. The data and the polls didn't support it. Well, polls are not always a guarantee. The reason I bring this up, it's going to be difficult to beat President Trump. Yes, there might be a recession. There might be a recession that sours some of his supporters on Donald Trump. There might not be. There's a lot of things that could happen between now and a general election, which is in August to August, 15 months from now. I bring all this up because you are going to need, let's put Bernie Sanders aside for a second. We as a society, if the most important thing is to beat Donald Trump, we as a society are going to need somebody sharp. We are going to need somebody energetic. We are going to need somebody with a fervent, with an energetic base of support. We are going to need somebody that on that debate stage can point out and expose Donald Trump as a fraud. We are going to need somebody who can talk over Donald Trump, which is hard to do. We are going to need somebody that is not just energetic physically, but energetic mentally. And thank you, Kelly Elaine, for the GoFundMe donation. We are now just $45. Oh, excuse me. We are now just $35 away from hitting $68,000 on our GoFundMe. Thank you, Kelly, as always. $40 in the GoFundMe, as well as Shelly left $5 9 minutes ago. Can we get another $35 in the next 30 seconds? Let's do it. So, the reason I say this, it is now clear. And I want to be clear. This is not me being funny. This is not me having fun at Joe Biden's expense. This is not me mocking Joe Biden. This is not me trying to get clicks at the expense of Joe Biden. This is me as somebody, if you follow my work, I am very passionate about the environment. I am very passionate against the climate catastrophe. I think 4 more years of Trump would do irreversible damage to our planet. And I do want children, and I don't want my children coming into this world with another 4 years of Donald Trump. I don't want Jen's kids to have to grow up under 4 more years of Donald Trump, because the environmental damage would be so severe. There's other damage he will do as well. But to me, the environmental damage is the most important thing of Donald Trump. You cannot run Joe Biden against Donald Trump and expect to win. And both the Democratic establishment, the media, and frankly, at this point, Joe Biden's family are playing with fire and doing a disservice to him and the country by not having him drop out of the race. This is from yesterday.
Country and annexed a significant, because they invaded another country and annexed a significant portion of it called Crimea. He's saying that it was President, my boss, it was his fault because they invaded another country and annexed a significant portion of it called Crimea. He's saying that it was President, my boss, it was his fault because they invaded another country and annexed a significant.
That the volume on that video when it was shot was not super strong. So if you didn't hear it, he forgot or was struggling to remember President Obama's name. He was about to say President Obama, and he forgot Obama's name. So he said, President, my boss. Folks, you can make excuses for a candidate. Traveling is hard. Sometimes they think they're in Portland, sometimes they say, I'm in Los Angeles when you're in San Francisco, whatever. This is cognitive decline. I have spoken with medical professionals, 2 medical professionals. They have not diagnosed him because he's not their patient. But they have said, the clips that I sent to these medical professionals told me, I'm not going to say any diagnoses because that's irresponsible, but they did say he looks like he's having cognitive issues. If Barack Obama is Joe Biden's best friend, he can't remember the name of his best friend. He can't remember the name of the president that he just served with. This is an absolute iceberg right ahead. For those of you that didn't see me Sunday, I will play you this clip with Joe Biden and in Iowa. I think he was having a local interview in Iowa. Here we go.
Where they're on Medicaid, they automatically be enrolled at no cost. In addition to that, we also have a mechanism to control drug prices. You know,
I'm not wishing him not to be well, but he's not well. And anyone with eyes and common sense could see this. Want to show you? I don't know who Joe Biden was interviewing with, but watch the
enroll at no cost. In addition to that, we also have a mechanism to control drug prices. You know, we're no longer using chemical-based things. All this thing we're dealing with cancers and other issues relating to the immune system are bio.
I don't know who Joe Biden was interviewing with.
Medicaid, they automatically be enrolled at no cost. In addition to that, we also have a mechanism to control drug prices. You know, we're no longer using chemical-based things. All this thing we're dealing with cancers and other issues relating to the immune system are bio-oriented. They're very expensive, and we should set up a system, which I propose, which I will if I'm elected president, that allows the folks at the folks at Health and the Health Department.
As you can see, and again, this is not to mock Joe Biden. This is not to say anything. In that one clip, Joe Biden could not say the word mechanism. He forgot the name of the Department of Health and Human Services. He tried to say the name of the Department of Health and Human Services. He forgot what it is. So he just said the Health Department. There were other words he was stuttering over. I mean, it's clear as day, folks. Clear as day. But everybody wants to sit with their head in the sand and pretend what's happening isn't happening. And I just want to show you just a quick Google search here to show you how much the media is covering for Joe Biden, not covering what's actually happening with Joe Biden, but covering it up. Here we go. Joe Biden forgets Obama's Look at this. He's forgetting Obama's name. The only sites that pick it up are conservative sites. Town Hall, Daily Caller, LIJ, News Radio, Red State, Daily Caller again. There is no non-conservative media picking up what is happening on video. This isn't a conservative or progressive issue. It's not a neoliberal conservative issue. This is an issue of the person currently leading in the polls is not cognitively well. I say that, again, I'm sorry to keep putting it as a disclaimer, but I want people to understand. I personally, and some of you might feel differently, I don't wish anything poor health-wise for Joe Biden. I mean, that's just not the type of person I am. I don't wish anything negative health-wise for him, his family, or anyone else. But I do wish to defeat Donald Trump. And I don't know how you could continually see event after event, speech after speech, city after city. He doesn't remember where he is. He doesn't know what city he's in. He is stumbling over words. Meanwhile, his wife is going around telling people, you know, just hold your nose and vote for my husband, even if you like somebody else more. His wife spends more time with him than anyone else. I'm not criticizing Joe Biden as a person, but she must see what we're seeing on camera. And by the way, if the establishment asked Joe Biden to drop out, I'm not saying, oh, they have to then, rally around Bernie Sanders or whatever. If they want to jump back on the Kamala bandwagon, if they want to jump on the Mayor Pete bandwagon, if they want to get Hillary out of the woods and run Hillary again, the establishment's going to do what the establishment's going to do. But I cannot believe any talk of, our main priority is defeating Donald Trump. If your main priority is defeating Donald Trump, having somebody who's clearly going to be embarrassed on a debate stage, having somebody that, as he further goes on in this campaign, and the stress of the travel and the speeches and the media pressure, he's going to be sounding worse. The campaign ads against Joe Biden write themselves. All you would have to show is literally these speeches, these stumbles, and say, I'm Donald Trump and I approve this message. That's it. And I wish I had my blowers. We have just hit $68,000. Thank you. Let's see who put us over the top, if my computer will load. For those of you that came a little late, I'm using my old computer because my current computer is at the Apple Store getting fixed. So a little slow on the upkeep here. Let me try one more time to refresh. There we go. $68,000. Thank you, Jude Ignacio. Got us over the hump. $68,000. Hey, Jude. Don't be afraid. Thank you, Jude. Now we are just $22,000 away from that $85,000 mark. It ain't going to be easy, but it's going to take, what do they say? It's going to take a village, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. And unlike some outlets that are asking you for money, we're going to actually do what we say we're going to do with the money. I got plenty of trips we want to take. We want to get back in the field. We need your help to do it. So if every single person, 418 people watching right now, if every single person watching could leave $5, oh my God, what's 5? What is 418 times 5? 418 times 5. That would give us enough money for literally one in-the-field trip. That would be $2,090, and that's usually how much an in-the-field trip costs. So keep it coming if you can. GoFundMe, status quo. Now, I already played that. Now I have to take on Joe Biden because, frankly, the advertisement that he put out using his dead wife, his dead daughter, and his dead son, although I want to be very, very clear with you. I want to be very, very clear with you. I don't think Joe Biden purposely put out this ad to, as a cheap way to use his grief. I don't like Joe Biden politically. I don't like his policies. I don't like what he has voted for, and I think he's fraudulent in what he's telling the American people. But I am not going to sit here and say his grief isn't real, or what he has gone through. He lost a wife, he lost a daughter, he's lost an adult son. I am not going to say that's not real. And I am not going to say that it is unfair for him to use that in his campaign. People's personal struggles, obstacles, is part of their life story, and their life story is part of their campaign. So my criticism of this ad is actually not that he did the ad and that he did this ad. My criticism is it plays fast and loose with facts, and it also, he probably didn't intend for this to happen. He actually made the case against his own healthcare plan, and I'm going to explain why. And no one in the media has pointed this out. Here, if you missed it, here is Joe Biden's TV ad that he put out about the loss he has had in his family.
I was sworn into the United States Senate next to a hospital bed. My wife and daughter had been killed in a car crash. And lying in that bed were my 2 surviving little boys. I couldn't imagine what it would have been like if we didn't have the health care they needed immediately. 40 years later, one of those little boys, my son Bo, was diagnosed with terminal cancer and given only months to live. I can't fathom what would have happened if the insurance companies had said for the last 6 months of his life, you're on your own. The fact of the matter is, healthcare is personal to me. Obamacare is personal to me. When I see the president try to tear it down and others propose to replace it and start over, that's personal to me too. We got to build on what we did because every American deserves affordable healthcare. I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Sorry, sound's back. Before I get to why that audio, why that ad is deceptive, I want to answer because somebody pointed out, Jordan, we get it with the disclaimers. You don't have to disclaim that, you appreciate his loss and these things. I want you to know why it's so important. Why it's so important for me to put that disclaimer out. We put that disclaimer out because we do not want status quo to be viewed as an attack dog on any candidate. We present facts, we keep it real, but we don't want to appear as if we're being cheap. We don't want to appear as if we are trying to capitalize on somebody's grief or loss. So that is why I'm putting out that I respect what he has lost. I have not suffered that, and I can't imagine. So even somebody I disagree with politically losing his wife, a young daughter, and a son. So you could hate somebody politically and what they stand for politically, but also respect what they've lost. So I think that's why I'm putting out the disclaimer. But with that disclaimer out there, we have to keep it real. When Joe Biden says, I cannot imagine what it would be like if the insurance company said you're on your own for the last 6 months of his life, he's right, because he didn't have to imagine it, like millions of Americans would continue to have to imagine under the health care plan that he's proposing. Beau Biden, and by the way, we've reached out to the Biden campaign to get some answers to some of these questions. Beau Biden, if you're not familiar, died of a brain tumor, Joe Biden's son. He was a member of the Delaware Army National Guard and was a major in the Judge Advocate General Corps. He was in the Army. Again, obviously you respect his service, and he's no longer with us. He was a member of the Delaware Army National Guard. I don't know for certain because Joe Biden's campaign has not responded to us, but my assumption is, being that he served, he probably had partial health care through the VA. So even in the last months of his life, he would have coverage as part of having served. And he should. If you served in the military, you should. Even though the wars are ridiculous, even though the wars are stupid, that doesn't mean we don't support the soldiers who fight them. So Joe Biden, when he says, I can't imagine that what would happen if the insurance company said you're on your own, you don't have to imagine it. Because he had insurance. There's another reason Joe Biden probably didn't have to imagine it. Because Beau Biden, for those of you that don't know, was the Attorney General of Delaware. He was the Attorney General of Delaware. And his term ended at the beginning of 2015. At the beginning of January 2015. Okay? Well, he died in May 2015. So he died only 5 months later. Well, immediately after ending his term as the Attorney General of Delaware, he joined a major donor to the Bidens and the Obamas law firm. This is from January 2015, just 5 months before he died. Former Attorney General Beau Biden didn't waste time finding a job. Biden, who left office last week ahead of a planned campaign for governor, will work at a law firm, work as a lawyer at Grant and Eisenhofer, the law firm by Stuart Grant, a prominent Democratic donor and the plaintiff's lawyer who represents institutional investors. Biden will work in GE's Wilmington offices, the firm announced Monday. And getting to, I think, the more important part, Grant, this is Grant's firm, is a friend and a significant donor to the Bidens. Grant bundled between $200,000 and $500,000 for the re-election campaign of President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden, Beau's father, in 2012. Grant wrote a $10,000 check to Beau Biden's Political Action Committee, BOPAC, in August, and gave another $10,000 to a Political Action Committee backing Den in October. Den is the candidate who became the Delaware Attorney General after Beau Biden. So, again, when Joe Biden says, I can't imagine what it would have been like if the insurance company said you're on your own, he didn't have to imagine, because his son, I'm not saying Beau Biden, it's no disrespect to him, his son probably worked hard. His son had a strong resume, Delaware Attorney General, obviously a lawyer, all these things. Most Americans do not serve in the military to then have health insurance through the Veterans Administration. And most Americans, if they left their job in January, whether they got fired, whether they quit, whether they had health problems, or their term ended, if it's a job that you're in a term, wouldn't then get the next day a prestigious job at a law firm that just so happened to have donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to Barack Obama and Joe Biden. Most Americans don't have those built-in advantages. So when Joe Biden proposes a expanding Obamacare, by the way, with very little specifics on how he's going to expand Obamacare, when Joe Biden proposes a public option, which again, a public option is not universal guaranteed health care. It's not. What Joe Biden is trying to say with this ad, that he can't imagine what would have happened with his son. Of course, I just told you he didn't have to imagine. His son was in the VA, and his son got a job the next day, or right after he left office as Delaware Attorney General, by a family friend and heavy donor to Biden. Most Americans don't have that. And just to make it clear, I see Jimmy Dore just went live. Gosh darn it. Love Jimmy. When Joe Biden, in this interview with CNN, is literally, without even knowing it, talking against for-profit health care. Here we go.
And so I was having lunch with the president, and he was the only guy other than my family I confided all along in everything that was going on. He was the only guy and so I was having lunch with the president, and he was the only guy other than my family I confided all along in everything that was going on with Bo, because I felt a responsibility to do that so that he knew where I was, my thinking. And I said, my concern is, I said, if Bo resigns, he has there's nothing to fall back on, his salary. And I said, but I worked it out. I said, but Jill and I will sell the house, we'll be in good shape. And he got up, he said, don't sell that house. Promise me you won't sell the house. He's going to be mad at me saying this. He said, I'll give you the money. Whatever you need, I'll give you the money. Don't, Joe. Promise me. Promise me. I said, I don't think we're going to have to anyway. He said, promise me. And then I'll never forget the eulogy he delivered for Bo. And when Bo had his stroke, when they had a stroke and they thought it turned out it was the beginning of the glioblastoma, and he came running.
He just made the case for Medicare for all. Biden, a former senator. No, Jimmy didn't call me back yet. I think he's mad at me. Tell him not to be mad at me. Biden is literally saying we would have to sell our house to help Bo cover his medical bills. By the way, this was 2015. So Obamacare existed in 2015. The problem is when you have a for-profit health insurance industry, even with Obamacare, even with a public option, it doesn't guarantee the costs of chemo and hospital stays and cancer treatment will be covered in full because there's no price controls in a for-profit healthcare system. This, you just heard it on the tape. This is from Biden. This is the Washington Post on this very topic. Over the next 2 years, Bo submitted to a range of powerful treatments, and throughout it all, Obama was at Biden's side. When Biden mentioned during one of their private lunches that he might take a second mortgage on his home for the family's medical bills, Obama got up from the table and put his hands on his friend's shoulders. Don't do that, Obama told him, as Biden recounted in his memoir. I'll give you the money. I have it. You pay me back whenever. The Biden family never needed to avail itself of Obama's generosity. That's according to the Washington Post. I don't know how they know that Biden never took him up on it. We reached out to the Biden campaign to say, did the vice president take financial help from President Obama? There would be nothing wrong with it. If I were in the position, I would have too. But we reached out to get answers to these questions. They haven't responded. So when he's Smash Dragon, Jordan, you should tell this to Bernie's staff. I'm a journalist. I don't work with campaigns on their political messaging. Even Bernie's campaign, which I support. I'm not going to tell them how to message. But I don't understand why nobody pointed this out. He's literally doing an ad saying, thank God. I can't imagine what would have happened if in my son's final months and weeks and days, we had to worry about health insurance. You're right there on the tape admitting you did have to worry about it. Yeah, you were going to have to remortgage your house. In another interview, he talked about possibly selling his house to cover Bo's medical expenses. And by the way, this isn't a criticism of him. That's what families have to do in a for-profit healthcare system. That's what he would have been forced to do. But luckily, his son, again, I don't have confirmation of this because we reached out to the Delaware Attorney General to ask them if even after Bo term was up, if in Delaware government, maybe you get to keep your health care for a few months after your term runs out. So we've been responsible. We've reached out to Biden's campaigns. We've reached out to the Delaware Attorney General's office. We have not heard back yet. Somebody said, hey, dude, TYT now talking about Biden's cognitive difficulties. George, with all due respect to TYT, I'm not just saying this I've been talking about this for weeks. I have been talking about this for weeks at Status Coup. We have been showing you these clips because I think it's irresponsible for journalists or commentators to keep pretending that these are gaffes. You don't have to be a medical expert or a doctor to look with your eyes at what's going on. So I'm happy they're talking about it now, but they certainly haven't been talking about it before, when it was evident weeks ago that this is what is going on. Maybe they're watching Status Quo. Speaking of, for those of you, I didn't mention this yet, we passed 700 members over the weekend, but then we had some cancellations. Sometimes people's cards decline or whatever, or people can't afford it anymore. So I hope if you're watching and you're not a member, you'll consider it. statusquo.com/join. This is what funds us to go out in the field. GoFundMe, but more importantly, membership. You could become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. It really is the key to us growing here. So statusquo.com/join. We appreciate everyone who signs up as a member. So the last thing I'll say about this, Joe Biden, and again, I'm not saying Joe Biden intentionally exploited his son or his loss. I do respect his loss. I know Jen does too. I don't have children, but I can't imagine losing 2 children. I can't. So I totally sympathize with his loss. We don't have to be barbaric just because we disagree politically. With that said, your health insurance plan that you're talking about keeps for-profit health care. So with your health insurance plan, you could say, well, there's a public option, so people would be covered. But anyone who has read about public options knows the public option does not guarantee health insurance. It doesn't. And not everybody could use the option. The only thing that guarantees health insurance is when there is one provider, there is one payer, and that's the government. So I'm happy that Joe Biden and his family didn't have to worry about medical bills in Beau's final months. But they didn't have to worry about it because he got health insurance as a veteran and because he came from a well-connected family and got a job right after his term ended at a law firm that gave his father and President Obama hundreds of thousands of dollars. Nothing, by the way, I'm not criticizing Beau Biden for taking that job. This is how the world works. This is how politics works. This is what we're trying to change. But hey, if I needed a job and if I needed health insurance, I probably would have done the same thing. So I hope more people start pointing out. I hope Durga Sorham, Jordan, this is not your best work, dude. I have no idea what your point of your video is whatsoever. Then you're not paying attention. The point is Joe Biden is pushing with his ad that his healthcare plan, which is expanding Obamacare, which is the public option, would make sure that if people face the same medical catastrophe that he faced, his son had inoperable cancer, that his healthcare plan would cover them. His healthcare plan would not cover them because his healthcare plan keeps for-profit health insurance in the driver's seat. It keeps for-profit health insurance. And with for-profit health insurance, even if you have health insurance, it will not cover all of the costs that go to chemo, the costs that go to hospital stays, the costs that go with cancer treatment or other illnesses. So even if you're covered under Joe Biden's expanded Obamacare, there will still be costs that could bankrupt families, even if there is an actual public option as part of his healthcare plan. That doesn't mean you won't have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when Joe Biden says, I can't imagine what it would have been like, it's not that Obamacare, it's not that his son had Obamacare. As far as we know, his son wasn't on Obamacare. The reason he didn't have to imagine it is because his son was his son was a soldier, had veterans insurance, and his son was employed right after he left office as Delaware's Attorney General, and as such got employer-based health insurance. Most people aren't that lucky. Most people did not serve in the military and thus don't get health insurance through the military. Most people, if they lose their job or can no longer work because they are sick, most people are not able to find a job the next week at a prestigious law firm that will then give them health insurance. That's the point of what I'm bringing up. C. Ethington, $5 in the super chat. If Joe is going through a cognitive decline and the establishment can get him in office, he will be easy to manipulate. That's true. He would basically be a president in visual only. Smash Dragon 11, $2 in the super chat. Bernie's staff shouldn't bring it up. It would be bad. I think I see your point because it's a sensitive topic. It's his son who died of brain cancer, so you don't want to make it seem like you're at all attacking his memory. You don't want to make it seem like you're going after what Biden has gone through. The point isn't that this wasn't a tragedy. The point isn't that we take away what Joe Biden has been through. The point is, part of why Joe Biden was telling that CNN interviewer we were thinking of, we might have to remortgage the house or sell the house, is because in a for-profit health system, you can't afford the medical bills that would come with inoperable terminal brain cancer. That's what Joe Biden was saying in that interview. That's why he would even have to think about selling his home or taking out a second mortgage. Pop Reality, $2. TYT is hiding Warren's corruption. I'm not so focused on TYT. I've moved on. So, going with that, at the beginning of this live stream, I told you it is irresponsible at this point for the Democratic establishment not to call for Joe Biden to step out of the race. Here is another example why. And honestly, I will criticize the corporate media till the cows come home. But when they deserve credit, I will give them credit. This is a pretty good Washington Post story. As he campaigns for president, Joe Biden tells a moving but false war story. Joe Biden painted a vivid scene for the 400 people packed into a college meeting hall. A 4-star general had asked the then vice president to travel to Kunar province in Afghanistan, a dangerous foray into God-forsaken country, to recognize the remarkable heroism of a Navy captain. Some told him it was too risky, but Biden said he brushed off their concerns. We could lose a vice president, he said. We can't lose many more of these kids. Not a joke. This is what he was telling a crowd at one of his campaign stops. The Navy captain, Biden recalled Friday night, had rappelled down a 60-foot ravine under fire and retrieved the body of an American comrade, carrying him on his back. Now the general wanted Biden to pin a silver star on the American hero who, despite his bravery, felt like a failure. He said, quote, "Sir, I don't want the damn thing," Biden said, his jaw clenched and his voice rising to a shout. Quote, "Do not pin it on me, sir. Please, sir, do not do that. He died. He died." The room was silent. This is the God's truth, Biden has said as he told the story. My word as a Biden. Except almost every detail in the story appears to be incorrect. Based on interviews with more than a dozen U.S. troops, their commanders, and Biden campaign officials, it appears as though the former vice president has jumbled events of at least 3 actual events into one story of bravery, compassion, and regret that never happened. Biden visited Kunar province in 2008 as a U.S. senator, not as vice president. The service member who performed the celebrated rescue that Biden described was a 20-year-old Army specialist, not a much older Navy captain. And that soldier, Kyler J. White, never had a Silver Star or any other medal pinned on him by Biden. At a White House ceremony 6 years after Biden's visit, White stood at attention as President Barack Obama placed a Medal of Honor, the nation's highest award for valor, around his neck. The upshot? In the space of 3 minutes, Biden got the time period, the location, the heroic act, the type of medal, the military branch, and the rank of the recipient wrong, as well as his own role in the ceremony. One element of Biden's story is rooted in an actual event. The vice president did pin a medal on a heartbroken soldier, Army Staff Sergeant Chad Workman, who didn't believe he deserved the award. In Afghanistan, he was moved by Staff Sergeant Workman's valor and selflessness, which is emblematic of the duty and sacrifice of the 9/11 generation of veterans who have given so much across countless deployments, Andrew Bates, a Biden campaign spokesman, said. Bates described honoring and recognizing those who have served our nation in uniform as one of Biden's most solemn obligations during his long career, and he added that Biden has devoted himself wholeheartedly on multitude of overseas trips. Biden, 76, has struggled during his presidential campaign with gaffes and misstatements that hark back to earlier political troubles. So this is where the Washington Post loses me, because the Washington Post, again, is covering for Joe Biden. These are not gaffes. Political gaffes are like, oh, I put my foot in my mouth. Oh, I said something I shouldn't have. This is somebody who cannot remember key details of events, who doesn't know that he's in New Hampshire and says he's in Vermont, who forgot President Obama's name during a speech last night, who forgot after 2 mass shootings in 24 hours, who forgot where they were. He said they happened in Houston and I think Michigan. They happened in El Paso and Dayton, Ohio. Now, some establishment people say, well, Jordan, look at our current president and his mental issues. Well, so you want to run one person who seems to be growing senile against another mentally deranged person? Because Trump's got a lot of mental deficiencies, but one thing I don't see with Trump, to be fair, he has energy. He's not forgetting, he's not stumbling over words. He's not forgetting cities yet. That could change. I don't know any political mind or anyone who is being honest and pure that their first priority is to defeat Donald Trump that could honestly say this person is the best suited to beat Donald Trump. Forget the polls for a second. Again, the polls at this point had Hillary Clinton far ahead of Bernie Sanders. The polls at this point had Hillary Clinton far ahead of any Republican, Jeb Bush, or anyone. The polls could say one thing, but are those polls going to stay strong if Joe Biden became the nominee and all the focus is on Joe Biden on the Democratic side? And he's stumbling over words, he can't remember things, and it's possible in speeches he forgets full sentences. His campaign and the chance to defeat Donald Trump would be over in that instance. Completely over. Thank you, Greg G., for deserting me to Jimmy Dore. Hey, man, people do what they want to do. I hope people stay with me, but, not going to tell them not to go elsewhere if they prefer to watch Jimmy. That's fine. So this is serious business. This is why I set up this whole live stream talking about Trump trying to dismantle the environment, Trump trying to basically give a green light for his officials to just totally disregard laws, totally disregard environmental regulations, seize property illegally via eminent domain, just to get his wall done by election time. This man is not going to be easy to be defeated, but I feel we are in a similar boat because I think anybody but Hillary Clinton could have beaten Donald Trump in 2016, and I think we're setting up another election where any other credible candidate, I don't know if Warren would beat him. I don't know. Actually, I think Warren has a decent chance to beat Trump. I don't think it's a sure thing that Warren would beat Trump, but I think she has a better chance than Joe Biden. I think Bernie Sanders, by all the data, has the best chance to beat Donald Trump because Bernie Sanders' base also has very similarities to Donald Trump's base. People making under $50,000 a year, working class people, people with just high school degrees, which is the majority of Americans. That's who Bernie gets the most. Bernie is also doing very well among African Americans. which you need. Hillary Clinton had 5% less African Americans come out for her in 2016 than Obama had in 2012. Not to mention 5% less Latinos in 2016 than Obama had in 2012. Not to mention 6% less aged 18 to 29 than Obama had in 2012. I end, folks. No words necessary, just the image. This, not only, if he is the nominee, will Donald Trump get reelected? I think if Donald Trump is reelected, and I'm not being dramatic, and I stayed away from calling him a fascist for a long time until I saw him telling 4 duly elected members of Congress to go back home. That was my breaking point. But if Donald Trump is reelected, there is a devastating threat to our environment and to the future of the planet. That is not hyperbole, and that's not drama. That's not overstating it. That's the truth. And honestly, without unshackled, with no worries about re-election, this man could do unprecedented damage to this country. Economically, socially, racially, environmentally. I am very serious that Donald Trump needs to be defeated. I know not all of you agree with me. I would vote. Personally, if it wasn't Bernie Sanders, I would vote for Warren if it meant beating Trump. She's not my favorite. But I think 4 years of Trump is one thing. 8 years of Trump is an entirely different thing, and I'm not willing to take that risk. Some of you could disagree, but Trump, I don't cover Trump 24/7, but I will tell you, another 4 years of him is a much more dangerous threat than Elizabeth Warren as president. I don't think it's going to come to that because I don't think Elizabeth Warren's going to win the nomination. But we need to take this seriously. And frankly, Tom Perez, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, the donors, and their friends in the media need to tell Joe Biden his time is not now. Thank you for your service, and go home and take care of yourself. That's what needs to happen. If they want to push Kamala or Pete or bring out Hillary from the political dead, go for it. But we can't take the risk of running Joe Biden. He would get demolished, and the environment and planet would then get demolished. Joseph Ballin, $5 in the super chat. Jordan, what happened to Epstein videotapes? I don't believe anything the government media or even indie media tells me anymore. Reality is crazy. Joseph, I believe, based on everything I've seen with Epstein, that there is a very clear cover-up. You don't have one of the most high-profile prisoners in America, other than the El Paso shooter, other than the Dayton shooter. You don't have one of the most high-profile prisoners in America, have guards not watching him at all times. You don't have one of the most high-profile prisoners in America who just tried to kill himself on July 23rd get taken off suicide watch 6 days after that. That does not happen on its own. You don't have, for the most high-profile prisoner in America, like nickel and diming, where you're having non-professional or like untrained security guards watching him. That does not happen. And you certainly don't have the video on his cell just coincidentally not be there. I don't believe any of it. It is a political cover-up. Obviously, there will be bodies thrown under the bus. I think they already demoted the warden there. You know, I'm not going to be a mass speculator I'm not going to engage in like who done it, but I don't think Jeffrey Epstein, if he did kill himself, I don't think it was on his own. I think he had help. And I'm not convinced that he did kill himself. I'm not. There is too many crazy coincidental things that happened here that is unthinkable to happen with somebody of that high profile, with such significant charges against him. I've seen no evidence that he killed himself, and medical experts have shown, I mean, he had broken bones in his neck, I believe. It's hard to do that on your own. So, that's what I think. I'm not going to say it was who you're saying it was or whatever, because we don't know. And I'm not Alex Jones. But what I do know, I don't buy that the video just disappears and, the security guards were sleeping or they weren't watching him. Like, no. No chance. So, folks, before I end, I want to, again, thank you. We passed we hit $68,000 on our GoFundMe. We haven't really been pushing the GoFundMe that much because we don't want to, overwhelm you with, like, become a member, GoFundMe. You give people too many options, they choose none. So we're now at $68,009. That's $22,000. $22,000. Oh, excuse me. What am I talking about? That's $17,000. I had the math wrong. That's $17,000 from our ultimate goal of $85,000. It ain't going to come easy. I don't expect it to come overnight. I don't expect it to come this month. It might take a few months. We're going to hit $85,000, which will definitely help us cover this campaign and continue to cover this campaign. So for those of you that have donated, thank you. If you can't donate again, we get it. We appreciate it. Just feel free to share our GoFundMe. Feel free to send people our in the field work so they know that we're not just telling you we're going to go out and cover things in the field. We've done it. A lot of this money for the GoFundMe has already been spent funding in the field journalism. Also, no, I can't do math. I failed it in 11th grade. For those of you that are not members, we definitely, if you have a choice, if you ask me, Jordan, what do you prefer, membership or GoFundMe? Definitely become a member. This is how we grow. This is how we become a sustainable media force, an independent media in the field, aggressive progressives, not to steal from Jimmy Dore. Statuscoup.com/join. Is real journalism worth $5 to $10 a month to you? Only you can decide. You also get bonus content for being a member, including monthly video calls with Jen and I. Thank you for watching. My apologies again for the tech problems we've had the last few days. This is my old computer. My new computer will be back hopefully tonight. Not my new computer, my current computer with new software and everything fixed, hopefully. So I'll be back at it tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern. Remember, most people are not lacking compassion in this country. Most people have no idea what is happening, what is going on, and the corruption and the injustice all around them. Peace out.